Bjorn Leatherwright could transform any animal hide into leather stronger than steel, yet softer than silk. His craftsmanship created armor that turned sword blades, boots that lasted decades, and clothing that protected against any weather. But when jealous nobles accused him of stealing magic from beasts and had him skinned alive as punishment, they discovered that some craftsmen develop connections to their materials that death cannot sever. Bjorn Leatherwright had spent 40 years perfecting the ancient craft of transforming raw animal hides into leather that seemed to possess qualities beyond what nature had originally provided. His workshop in the village of Ironholm had become legendary throughout 3 kingdoms for producing leather goods that defied every limitation ordinary tanners accepted as unchangeable. His leather armor could turn sword blades without denting, yet remained flexible enough for warriors to move with fluid grace. His boots lasted decades of hard travel while staying comfortable enough for daily wear. Most remarkably, his weather cloaks could protect their wearers against the harshest storms while remaining light as summer fabric. But Bjorn's true gift wasn't supernatural. It was the result of obsessive dedication to understanding every aspect of how animal skin could be preserved, strengthened, and transformed. He knew which plants produced tannins that enhanced durability, how different soaking techniques affected flexibility, and most importantly, how to read the grain and structure of each hide to maximize its natural strengths. More than technical knowledge, Bjorn possessed profound respect for the animals whose lives had provided his raw materials. He believed that each hide carried the essence of the creature it had once protected, and that honoring that sacrifice was essential to creating leather worthy of the beast's death. This philosophy guided every aspect of his work. He used every scrap of hide, wasted no part of what the animal had provided, and crafted each piece with the care due to something that had once been alive and breathing. Bjorn's success inevitably attracted attention from those who saw his prosperity as a threat to their own interests. The Guild of Royal Leatherworkers had grown wealthy by maintaining monopolistic control over luxury leather goods, charging premium prices for inferior products, protected by political connections rather than superior craftsmanship. Lord Ragnar Goldpurse, who controlled the guild through bribes and intimidation, watched Bjorn's growing reputation with increasing alarm. Common warriors were choosing peasant-made armor over guild products. Merchants were commissioning travel gear from a village craftsman rather than court-approved artisans, and even nobles were secretly purchasing Bjorn's work while publicly supporting guild monopolies. "It's not natural," Ragnar declared during a guild meeting, his voice heavy with the paranoia of someone whose wealth depended on maintaining artificial scarcity. "No honest tanner produces leather that strong. No legitimate craftsman creates goods that last so long they never need replacement." His advisors murmured agreement, though many privately owned pieces of Bjorn's work that had saved their lives during dangerous situations. Fear of economic disruption outweighed gratitude for superior craftsmanship, creating the political consensus Ragnar needed to eliminate his competition. "The man must be stealing magic from the beasts he skins," Ragnar announced with false certainty. "His leather possesses qualities that belong to living animals, not dead hide. That's not craftsmanship, that's sorcery." The formal charges brought against Bjorn revealed the depth of ignorance and jealousy driving his persecution. He was accused of stealing beast souls, corrupting natural hide with dark magic, and creating unnatural leather through forbidden arts. The evidence presented was his own success, leather so superior to guild products that it seemed impossible without supernatural intervention. The accusers couldn't conceive that patient study, respectful technique, and genuine care for materials could produce results beyond their own limited abilities. "Bjorn Leatherwright," Lord Ragnar announced during the public trial, "you stand convicted of practicing dark arts upon innocent animal hides, of stealing the natural strength that belongs to living beasts, and of using forbidden magic to create leather that mocks honest craftsmanship." Bjorn's defense was simple and dignified. "I honor every animal that died to provide my materials. I waste nothing, respect everything, and create leather worthy of the sacrifice made to obtain it. If that produces superior results, the magic lies in respect rather than sorcery. But truth was irrelevant when economic interests demanded a scapegoat. The verdict had been decided before the trial began. Ragnar's chosen punishment revealed both his cruelty and his fundamental misunderstanding of what made Bjorn's work superior. If the tanner truly stole magic from animal skins, then he should experience firsthand what it meant to have his own hide forcibly removed. Since you claim such intimate connection with beast hides, Ragnar declared with false judicial authority, you'll discover what it feels like to provide raw material for leather yourself. We'll skin your back and see if human hide possesses the same magical properties you claim to find in animal skin. The flaying was performed publicly, both to satisfy Ragnar's cruelty and to discourage other craftsmen from achieving excellence that threatened guild interests. Bjorn was stripped and bound, while skilled butchers slowly removed the skin from his entire back, exposing raw flesh to air and infection. But even during the excruciating torture, Bjorn maintained his dignity and his understanding of what the process meant. Now I know what every animal felt whose hide I worked with. This knowledge will not be wasted. As they left him to die from shock and infection, his tormentors believed they had solved their problem permanently. A skinned man couldn't compete with guild leather monopolies. Recovery from such extensive flaying should have been impossible, but Bjorn possessed knowledge that his attackers had never imagined. He understood wound care from years of treating cuts and scrapes that were inevitable in leather work, knew which plants could prevent infection, and most importantly, had developed during his career an almost mystical understanding of how skin healed and transformed. But more than practical medical knowledge, the experience of being skinned alive had given Bjorn insight into his craft that 40 years of working with animal hides had never provided. He now understood viscerally what every creature had experienced whose hide he had transformed, creating an empathy that transcended the boundary between human and animal suffering. During the long months of healing, this new understanding merged with his lifetime of technical expertise to create something unprecedented, to communicate with leather itself, to sense the memories contained within every hide he had ever worked, and most mysteriously, to influence the behavior of leather goods throughout the kingdom. The flayed skin of his back healed into scar tissue that looked remarkably like expertly worked leather, complete with grain patterns and flexibility that seemed more crafted than naturally healed. 6 months after the flaying, reports began reaching Lord Ragnar of systematic failures affecting leather goods throughout his territory. Guild-produced armor split during critical battles, leaving warriors vulnerable to enemy weapons. Royal boots fell apart during state ceremonies, embarrassing nobles before foreign dignitaries. Most disturbing of all, the failures seemed to target specifically those who had supported Bjorn's persecution. But leather goods created by Bjorn continued to function perfectly, protecting their owners and serving faithfully regardless of the craftsman's apparent death. Investigation revealed that every piece of Bjorn's work was actually improving with age, becoming stronger and more resilient, as if the tanner's torture had somehow enhanced rather than ended his connection to his materials. The pattern suggested systematic sabotage, but guild investigators could find no evidence of tampering with their products. The leather was failing according to its own internal weaknesses, as if 40 years of shoddy craftsmanship had suddenly caught up with every piece they had ever produced. As guild leather continued failing while Bjorn's work thrived, a more disturbing phenomenon emerged. New leather goods appearing throughout the kingdom that bore no maker's mark, but possessed the unmistakable quality of Bjorn's craftsmanship. These items materialized in the homes of those who had been kind to the persecuted tanner, replacing worn equipment with gear superior to anything the guild had ever produced. The mystery deepened when witnesses reported seeing a scarred figure working in abandoned tanneries during the darkest hours of night, creating leather goods with techniques that seemed to blend traditional craftsmanship with supernatural understanding of hide and skin. Lord Ragnar's investigation of these reports led him to Bjorn's old workshop, where he discovered something that challenged every assumption about the relationship between life, death, and craftsmanship. The building had been transformed into something that seemed part workshop, part shrine to the animals whose hides had provided materials for 40 years of respectful work. Standing among tools that seemed to move by themselves and leather that shaped itself according to need rather than human manipulation, Ragnar found Bjorn, or something that had once been Bjorn. The scarred back had healed into patterns that resembled expertly crafted leather, while his hands moved with precision that transcended normal human capability. "You thought skinning me would prove I stole magic from animals," Bjorn said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had transcended ordinary limitations through suffering. "Instead, it taught me that skin is skin, whether human or beast. The magic was never in stealing, it was in understanding." The demonstration that followed proved that Bjorn's abilities had evolved far beyond traditional tanning techniques. He worked with leather that responded to his touch like living tissue, creating armor that adapted to its wearer's needs and clothing that healed its own damage. Most remarkably, he could sense the history contained within every hide, which animal it had come from, how that creature had lived and died, and what purpose the hide was meant to serve. "This is justice," Bjorn announced as supernatural leather goods began appearing on every person who had shown kindness to animals or respect for honest craftsmanship. "You tried to steal my connection to the materials I worked with. Instead, you made that connection permanent and unbreakable." Lord Ragnar's fate became a warning throughout the kingdom about the consequences of persecuting those whose mastery came from respect rather than exploitation. Guild-produced leather continued to fail catastrophically, leaving their customers vulnerable and embarrassed, while Bjorn's supernatural workshop provided protection and comfort to anyone who treated animals with kindness. But the deeper lesson was about the relationship between craftsmen and materials. Bjorn had learned that true mastery meant understanding not just technique, but the essence of what he worked with, the life that had provided the raw materials, the purpose those materials were meant to serve, and the respect due to everything that had died to enable human craftsmanship. The workshop that operated according to principles of honor and remembrance rather than profit and exploitation became a place where leather goods created themselves for worthy recipients, where animal hides found their highest purpose, and where the boundary between life and death proved less important than the boundary between respect and exploitation. Standing in his transformed workshop, surrounded by leather that moved with the memory of living creatures, Bjorn understood that he had become something unprecedented, a craftsman whose materials worked with him rather than for him, and whose art honored both the living and the dead in service of justice. Some skills, when perfected through suffering, transcend the limitations of both flesh and hide. If this tale of ultimate payback moved you, hit that like button and let us know in the comments which part shocked you the most. Subscribe to Time for Payback for more legendary stories where betrayal meets justice, and don't forget to ring that notification bell, because every betrayal has its reckoning, and every story holds the power to change everything. What revenge story should we tell next? Drop your suggestions below. Until next time, remember, karma never forgets.